Family, gather up. Today, we honor an ancestor whose name still makes empires tremble, Nat Turner. October 2nd, 2025 marks 225 years since his birth, and I'm here to say it plain. Nat Turner was an American hero, not the kind they put on a postage stamp and water down for school books, the kind who looked straight at a system built to crush his soul and said, I was not born to be your property. He was a preacher, a visionary, a strategist, and when the Spirit said, move, he moved. Tonight, I'm the streetwise griot with the mic, the drum, and the receipts, telling it so our children hear it in their bones and our elders nod from the other side. Let's walk it. Nat Turner, born October 2nd, 1800, Southampton County, Virginia, on the plantation of Benjamin Turner. From the jump, people could see there was something different about that boy. Quiet fire in the eyes, mind moving like a river under ice. His mother, Nancy, carried Africa in her voice and poured that medicine into him at night. You came from kings and warriors. Your blood is not meant for chains. Nat learned letters when the law said, stay ignorant. He absorbed the Bible not as a lullaby, but as a map. Exodus wasn't a bedtime story. It was a strategy document. By 12, he could recite scripture after a single hearing. People whispered about strange signs around him, vision, symbols, omens, and whether you read those as mystic or metaphor, they forged a man who believed he had a divine assignment to break the yoke. When Benjamin Turner died, Nat passed to Samuel Turner and later to Joseph Travis. Through it all, his faith deepened. He preached in the quarters, in the woods, in the small hours, telling our people we were not made for the auction block or the whip. He fasted, prayed, watched the heavens. In his 20s, he saw battles in the sky and a vision, black spirits and white spirits locked in struggle, thunder rolling, the sun dimmed. He took it as instruction, prepare. He tried to escape once, then returned after another vision, told him the harvest would be at home, not up the road. You can call it providence, you can call it purpose. I call it a man choosing courage over comfort. Then came the sign he could not ignore. February 1831, a solar eclipse. Darkness laid over Virginia in daylight. For Nat, it was the clock striking midnight. He began to select a small inner circle, men he trusted with his life and the future of their families. Hark Travis, Henry Porter, Samuel Francis, Nelson Williams, Will Francis, Jack Reese. No loose lips, no glory hounds, just quiet resolve. They met under the trees where the earth listens. They mapped which plantations to hit first, how to move, how to recruit on the march, how to reach Jerusalem, the county seat now called Cortland, where an armory sat like a locked door in a burning house. Their plan was not chaos, it was choreography under impossible conditions. Would the rising be perfect? No, but bondage had never offered perfection, only slow unaliving of the spirit. The date was chosen, the night of Sunday, August 21st, 1831, rolling into the early hours of the 22nd. Why Sunday? Because the enslavers would likely be home, off guard. Before the storm, the seven gathered for a last meal, wood smoke curling up, a pig roasting, a ceremony that braided scripture with echoes of Africa. We drink to our freedom and to the judgment of a God who hears the cry of the oppressed, Nat told them. Then they moved. They entered Joseph Travis's house in the dark. What happened there and in the hours that followed, I won't narrate with gore because this is sacred ground and we don't turn our ancestors' pain into spectacle. But know this, the first blows were struck, the household was neutralized, and the march began. From farm to farm, they moved with a hard, grim rhythm, freeing people who joined, turning back those who couldn't, gathering a handful of weapons, a few horses, more men. By mid-morning on the 22nd, they were roughly 60 strong, Some came because hope finally outweighed fear. Some came because history had knocked on their door, and you don't ask destiny to leave a message. At one large plantation, a brutal overseer tried to hold out. The struggle was fierce. The rebels pressed, and the man's violence met consequence. There were moments when Nat, face to face with those raised inside the system, paused because he was human, but purpose hardened him. He believed he was a tool in a righteous hand. Remember the context: families torn apart at the auction block, women violated, backs refused healing. Nat had no illusions about mercy from a machine designed to erase him. By nightfall of the first full day, about 55 enslavers and family members were dead. The company turned toward Jerusalem, but the element of surprise had thinned. News travels on fear's wings. White militia, many with recent war experience, formed, and the first skirmish hit like a wall. Shots cracked. The rebels, outgunned and outsupplied, punched through but lost precious time. When they neared the town, militia lines had hardened. Nat chose to fall back into the woods to regroup. That's where movements either mature or break. They tried smaller raids, kept moving, but the net was tightening. Vigilantes roamed the county, unaliving black people who had nothing to do with the revolt, free and enslaved alike, because that's how white terror operates: indiscriminate, collective punishment to make everyone kneel. Several of Nat's closest lieutenants were captured in late August. Nat went to ground, literally digging a small cavity under a fallen tree. 6 weeks he hid like a seed, the countryside above trembling with patrols and revenge killings. He watched, listened, prayed. On October 30th, 1831, a farmer named Benjamin Phipps found him with tracking dogs. Nat surrendered without begging. "My body is captured, but my spirit is free in the hands of God," he reportedly said. They jailed him in Jerusalem. A local attorney, Thomas R. Gray, took his confessions, interviews where Nat explained his visions, his plan, his unbending belief that he was carrying out divine justice. Even Gray, committed to the slave system, admitted Nat's mind was sharp and his memory uncommon. The trial on November 5th was as brief as a shadow at noon. Guilty, sentenced to death. On November 11th, 1831, they hanged him. The desecration that followed, the treatment of his remains, tells you how terrified that society was of a black man who refused to accept their definition of humanity. They tried to erase him physically and inflate him into a monster at the same time. But here we are, still saying his name, because ideas don't hang and courage doesn't rot. Now pause with me. Family, if the elders, the story, and the drum are feeding you right now, do 2 things to help this work travel. Hit the like so this truth cuts through the algorithm fog, and subscribe so the next ancestor story finds you first. Drop a comment with 225 for Nat if you're with me. If you're wrestling with the complexity, say so. We don't run from hard conversations here. All right, back to the river. In the rebellion's aftermath, Southern lawmakers slammed more locks on the cage. Bans on literacy tightened, unsupervised worship criminalized, movement restricted. Vigilantes unalived more than 120 black people in Virginia alone in those weeks, most not even connected to Nat's band. That is what the system always feared. Not one man with a plan, but a people waking up. Abolitionists in the North argued that Nat's revolt, however bloody, was the predictable consequence of an immoral institution. Pro-slavery voices used it to double down, saying any inch of liberty would unleash chaos. Both sides proved the same point. Slavery was a powder keg built on theft, torture, and lies. Pretending the enslaved were content was the biggest myth of all. As the years turned, Nat's name traveled in whispers and work songs. It rode beside Union soldiers as they liberated plantations. It pulled up a chair in the minds of presidents who were warned that emancipation might spark 1,000 Nat Turners and chose freedom anyway. In the civil rights era, Nat's face returned as a mirror for our own choices. Do we insist on human dignity even when the cost is high? That fight isn't an antique, it's a living inheritance. And listen, I know some of you struggle with the violence. You should. Violence happened to us for centuries. Auction blocks, family separations, forced labor, state terror, and the official history often sanitized that violence while magnifying any resistance as barbaric. What I'm saying is this: you don't have to celebrate every tactic to understand the verdict Nat pronounced on slavery itself. He forced America to look in the mirror. He made it impossible to cling to the fairy tale of happy slaves. He shattered the comfort of a civilization built on stolen bodies. That is why his story matters 225 years later. Because someone will always tell our children, your ancestors accepted their fate, we answer, Nat Turner prayed, planned, and stood. And we remember the people who paid with their lives in the repression that followed, innocent black folks unalived in the white backlash. We hold all of that complexity, grief, defiance, faith, because that's what grown nations do with their history. Let's be specific with dates and names for those building classroom units, family lessons, or freedom libraries. Birth, October 2nd, 1800. Solar eclipse sign, February 1831. Rising, night of August 21st into August 22nd, 1831. Skirmish before Jerusalem, August 23rd. Key, Lieutenants, Hart Travis, Henry Porter, Samuel Francis, Nelson Williams, Will Francis, Jack Reese. Hart executed September 5th. Nat captured October 30th. Trial November 5th. Execution November 11th. Primary source, interviews, published as The Confessions of Nat Turner by Thomas R. Gray. Place names, Southampton County, Jerusalem, today, Cortland. That's not myth, that's history, but we don't leave it on the shelf. We carry its lessons forward. What are those lessons? 1. Literacy is a weapon. The law tried to keep him in the dark. He reached for light. 2. Spiritual vision without strategy is daydreaming. Strategy without spirit is a dry bone. Nat fused both. 3. Oppression always calls resistance criminal. Don't let the oppressor write your epitaph. 4. When we organize, the backlash is real. Prepare for it. Protect each other. Don't let it scatter you. 5. The narrative battlefield matters. If we don't tell our stories, they will be told for us, stripped of power and context. So we sing them, study them, and put them back in our children's mouths. And to the ancestor himself, happy 225th, Nat Turner. Your mother told you you weren't born to be a slave. You proved her right. We don't deify, we testify. You were a man, not a myth. Fallible, faithful, focused. And you forced a reeling nation to face its original sin with less denial. Family, if this message landed, here's your mid-episode call to arms. The same every time because the drumbeat must be steady. 1. Like this video so the algorithm can't bury ancestor truth. 2. Subscribe and ring that bell so the next drop doesn't miss you. 3. Share this with someone who only learned the sanitized version in school. 4. Comment 225 for Nat and tell me which part of his story hit you the hardest. We learn together, we remember together, we move together, back to the flow. The state tried to humble his memory with disrespect to his body. That didn't work. Gray's confessions tried to filter his voice through a white lawyer's pen. That didn't stop his words from burning through. Novels and films later fought over who gets to script him. Critics rightly called out distortions. The lesson: own our archive, build our libraries, name our heroes whole, not as saints without scar, but as humans who refuse to submit. If you ever visit Southampton, the historical marker is small, the wording modest, but stand there anyway. Hear wind in the trees like whispers in the quarters. Feel how a few determined people shook the ground so hard the tremors carried into the Civil War and beyond. You are the echo. You are also the next verse. To educators, podcasters, and parents, take this story into classrooms and kitchens. Pair it with readings from enslaved narratives, from David Walker, from Harriet Jacobs, from Ida B. Wells later on. Map out where laws tighten right after 1831. Show how backlash is as American as the Bill of Rights. Teach cause and effect the way the textbooks won't. And keep repeating the simple truth. Our ancestors were thinkers and fighters, builders and believers. Nat Turner is not an outlier. He's a member of a long communion. Family, I'll end as I began. Clear, loud, and loving. Nat Turner was an American hero because he tried to force a wicked country to live up to a holy claim that human beings are not property. He read a book they used to chain him, and he found in it the key. He saw signs in the sky and in our suffering, and he chose to act. He paid with his life, and many innocents paid too in the brutal backlash. We hold them all in memory with reverence, and we carry forward the assignment: knowledge, courage, community. If you're still here, salute to you. Do the algorithm work, like, subscribe, share, drop 225 for Nat in the comments, and tell me who you want next in the Ancestor series. The roll call is long and the drum is warm. No sellouts, no filters, no fear. This is the X-Man signing off.